This week on Mind and Heart, we're going to do something a little different. I'm taking you on the road. Back to my roots, where my education and vocation began, in an unlikely place and during an unlikely time. I'm taking you to Music City, to Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Sister John Dominic, a foundress of the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist. Come along with us, and I will introduce you to some special people that use their gifts and talents to promote goodness and virtue. Grammy-Award winning artist Amy Grant, Hall of Fame golfer Joe Taggart, and award-winning architect Dick Miller. It's great to see you again.
Thank you.
A couple things that we've kind of touched upon, but I think people may be interested in, so I got to ask you.
Okay.
Did you go to White Gloves and Party Manners, where they taught us etiquette?
No, I did not, but only because I'm the fourth daughter.
Oh, okay. Everybody else
So my
went.
older siblings did. I think my mother was just tired by the time I came along, and I was kind of a dirt dauber. You know, I was always outside.
And well, that's why they sent me, because I was I think my mom was afraid I was like, there's the tomboy. Now we need to make a little bit out of a Southern lady out of her. But actually what really happened was that Tandy Rice, who I'm sure you've been, his daughter was going, and I think they needed a companion because my mom was working for Tandy at the time. And so that's how I got drug into Kane Sloan to learn how to set tables and do those things. But I did win the Ladylike Award. I know, it's shocking.
That's lovely.
I know. Yeah, so they gave me a little doll or whatever, but it didn't take the love for sports and everything else out of me, but they tried. Now, what about Fortnightly?
Did that,
yeah. And then what's your memory from that one?
Oh, man, that was fun. I just, Fortnightly happened for us, every other Friday night.
Yeah.
And I think it was like this whole entire school year of sixth or seventh grade.
Yeah.
And, we learned how to do dances, but it was just so much fun to kind of be in an environment with boys.
Right.
But nobody's, nobody was really on the line.
Yeah,
you
right.
weren't risking anything. Everybody could go, oh, I can't believe we have to do this. But you're sort of also thrilled.
Yeah, there were those little cards, those dance cards. For some reason, I remember that. I don't know.
Yes. And so they would come up and ask you to dance
that's
and
right.
sign a card. Yeah. So, I know. It's funny because even now I'll say, if somebody asks me to do something, I'll go, my dance card's full. Not that it was ever full when I was a child going to Fortnightly. But yeah, that doesn't make sense to anybody now. But we were brought up
and it was down at that old house on West End. I don't know if you don't even know if it's torn down. Yeah.
It's torn down.
Yeah, every time I come back, there's something different, And you went to Harpeth Hall, I went to St. Cecilia. But I remember when you were starting out, some of my friends, their older sisters were at Harpeth Hall, and you were playing in churches. And so I kind of feel like I grew up, with the beginning of your music, And I was thinking when I was thinking, gosh, what can we talk about? And one of your great gifts is you're a great storyteller. And when I think about your life, if you think about your life, you take a step back, and if you were to put your music together in a storyline, would you say your music reflects your journey in life? If you were put, like if there was a time.
Sure, absolutely, yes.
That's right,
Yes, but just little tiny snapshots.
Okay.
And then, it's sort of strange now because I'll go back and sing a song that I wrote as a teenager, or I'll sing a song from my 20s or my 30s or my 40s. Now I'm in my late 50s. And so I'll joke sometimes before I sing a song, especially if it's really rangy. I mean, I was never like a acrobatic singer. I was always just a melody singer. But, I'll say, So singing some of these old songs would be like if somebody came up and said, "Hey, let's throw on these jeans from high school. Take them out for a spin." But yeah, those songs, at least for me, are snapshots of things, not the full story.
Just different times, and it reflects because that would be a way of. I mean, it's almost like journaling or something. It's like a way you can release something or tell a story. I don't know.
Yeah, journaling is a lot more thorough.
Different. Yeah, that's true. That's
a lot
true.
More
yeah.
You don't want anybody to find your journal.
Oh, yeah, you can bury that thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which actually is it's amazing how even that's even coming back. Just the need for that, and that's when I've done. Working with young people and trying to teach people with Lectio Divina and reading, like let's bring you to the Word of God and then write out this experience because you use a totally different part of your brain when you're writing.
Yes.
And it's really the feedback I get from young people or different people that use that. It's life-changing for some.
Sure. Well, I always think, especially writing cursive.
Yeah.
Is a form of creativity. Just writing anything is a form of creativity because you're having to shape something that is uniquely yours, your handwriting. And yeah, I mean, they're like, I always think, where in the world can you actually express your deepest thought, your greatest fear? I mean, first off, who really cares? But if you give yourself the freedom to actually write it, when I got so mad at so-and-so, really what I was feeling was guilt over X, Y, Z. Will I ever learn? And I'm telling you, if you will write and keep writing, not for somebody else to read, but just for yourself, I don't know that there's a more immediate way for God to speak to us. Then all of a sudden you're writing, and then all of a sudden you're writing something that feels so other than the line that you were on. Yeah. The line that you were on was like emotional self-mutilation, and then suddenly you write, I'm free.
Yeah.
I'm free to change.
Yeah.
I'm free to, because we want to connect with the divine. We want to be led by the Spirit, but we got to find some communication thread here. And I believe so strongly that when you're writing, you're already engaged, and something can just come through you and find its way on the page. I actually have felt that way about song lyrics before.
That's why I was wondering, if there's some point you can just because if you're trying to get something concise, you got to think of all these different ways you want to say it, and like I can say it in 3 words, but I would imagine if you're writing a song, I mean, how long does it? It would have to take. I mean, like even up to a year, or
it just depends. You can have an idea that floats
like
around.
that. Wake it,
yeah, just waiting. Yeah, that's like somebody who's really funny. They can have a joke that they're just waiting for the right place to land that joke, like for years, just waiting.
For that opening to come.
Yeah. But I have found and really maybe the portal is creativity and openness, because all those things to me reflect God. That's how we're different than all the rest of creation is that we reflect His creativity. And so in a song or in a poem, you might be thinking, okay, this is an A-B rhyme. Okay, what are words that rhyme with that? Okay, where am I going? But then looking back on it, you felt like it was just an exercise. But maybe years later, you'll go, I mean, there's a truth embedded in there that was so far beyond my years. That's what I'll...
When you go back and read, I've noticed that if I go back, because I've journaled for years, and then when I go back and I pick up something, and I'm like, did I write that? It's like, wow, did I really write that? And it's amazing, and that's just I guess, because that, God is really, He's present in the moment,
Always.
And that's what we have to, we believe. And all right, so this is I have to give a little background on this, but let me ask you this question. All right, and I've been giving I've been thinking about this for a long time, and then when I've been giving talks to people, I encourage them to begin their prayer this way. And
Okay.
so I want to ask you, and for me, it's kind of embarrassing in a certain sense because I've been like in this, like this, my life, since I was 18 years old is when I went in the convent and, make this decision,
Yes.
that I'm going to do what God wants and live. And I would probably say, and probably in the last 5 years, it's like, I feel like, oh, I get it now, and it's every day I go to Mass, I do the prayers, and where I've brought it down to, it's very, very simple, but I've brought it down to where my prayer for all those years is me saying, God, I love you, or I love you. And I think we have this thing that we have to say it perfect enough that it'll be pleasing or he'll accept it until I reach this moment where I realize, yes, I love you too, because he first loves me. And that it's a relationship, and that my prayer really is, and the freedom is, I love you too. I'm acknowledging that he is a loving Father who sent his Son, who sends his Spirit to be with us, and that I have to be who he wants me to be, and there's a great freedom in that.
Yes.
And there's things that shaped that along the way, and that would be a whole nother conversation, but I'm sure of my personal family, what kind of brought me to that point, just letting go and letting God in situations. But
Right.
I don't know if you had that, I don't know if you would have said it that way, if
Right.
you would say kind of something like that differently, but if you had that experience, or it's a both and. I mean, it's like you have to say it,
Right.
but it's not the either or. I don't know if
Right.
that's too complicated of a thought, but when I tell this to people, because I was like, this is First John. He knew him intimately, he knew him present. He touched him. That's really where we want to be. In that relationship. What's that prayer how's that prayer go? You say
The one that Mary Chapman
right,
taught me.
right, yeah.
This giving full credit. My mother-in-law, Mary Chapman, for those 17 years I was married to Gary Chapman, came in one morning. I was at the coffee pot. I had 2 small children, was exhausted. I'd been doing overseas interviews, which happened in the middle of the night. And I was like, I said, I don't even think I've prayed a succinct prayer like in weeks. I was so exhausted. I was exhausted all the time. And her life could have been a movie. I mean, just grew up in extreme poverty and heard the gospel as a 4th grader when her teacher invited her to come help her clean her house. So she was actually probably a 13-year-old 4th grader. She started school late because her mother worked in a carnival.
Oh, wow.
So she was
Wow.
a carny kid anyway. But she was joyful about everything. And she said, oh, it just takes one good prayer. And of course, Church of Christ, I'm like, no, there's a balance there at the point of death. And I said, one good prayer. And she said, yeah, just Amy, every day pray, Lord, lead me today to those I need and those that need me. And let something I do have eternal significance. And she said, and that part you're never going to know, but just ask it.
Yeah.
And I remember going, that's so, it almost felt backwards because even in prayer, we have felt like the appropriate prayer was in service to other people.
Yeah.
But starting right off, God, Lord, lead me today to those I need. And those that need me. And yeah, it's funny. I kind of like your life in service to God, you realize was whatever that shift in you. It was like, oh, all along I was just responding. So I'm just going to say it out loud.
Yeah.
This is a totally different, but also an awareness that came in the back half of my life.
Yeah.
And it was one night on a family trip. Most of my children are grown. and I was just heartsick about something. They had all gone out. And I picked up my guitar and I was just playing songs. And I was like, then I remembered a song from one time in my life, a song from another time in my life. And it was the craziest shift because I went, oh God, these were for me.
Wow.
This gift was for me in order to make it through life. And I think as a child and growing up in church, it was like God gives us gifts so that we can serve other people. And I think that's true. But the most important thing is, well, let me rephrase that, not the most important thing. Understood in the gift is that it's given to us.
Yeah.
And then we in turn share it. But it's just changed everything. I'll meet somebody, God's given me a gift. I feel like I'm supposed to have a platform. Go, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah. Maybe he knows you so well that he knows in order for you to live the life that he's designed for you, that gift is essential for you.
Yeah.
So receive it. Let it be a part of your life.
Yeah.
And then it will naturally find its way out to other people. But
it's that's the response. I mean, that's really beautiful because as you were saying that, I remembered something I read, and it was another one of these like moments where I thought, wow, I never looked at the Gospels that way. But it talked about how when Christ lived, and you read the Gospels and how everything he did, he wanted to do the Father's will. He would go away to pray,
right,
to listen, and to find out where, what Father, what is it? Everything, and you said that in John, everything I've told you is what the Father has told me to reveal. And you think about all those cities that he would go into, he didn't cure everybody. It was who had the faith of their response, but who the Father showed him to, and where he could have. And the way that this author kind of took that idea was that sometimes we have to really believe that we can't do everything, and that we have to trust that the significance is in that person that we may meet in the moment or in the day, and that we can't. It's really, when you get down to it, it's really simple, and being present to people. And oftentimes I'm like, how can we make something like, we make it too complicated, I think.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. So I say that as I'm breaking out and doing this podcast and bringing you here, but it's whoever, it's just, but that's even a part of the vision, is that nowadays, where are people? And there are a lot of times the people that are lonely or lost are out there searching for something, and it could be on the internet. And if we can kind of be a light in the darkness that happen upon a conversation, you never know how God can use that moment.
Sure.
And I think that's really when you need to be like, John the Baptist, and we decrease to let Christ increase. Well, you don't have any, you don't even look on social media or anything.
Not much. It's, I mean, it's kind of it's a rabbit hole for me. So, I just feel like, I don't know, I feel protective of my mental space.
Yeah.
And I don't, the nights when I will think, oh, I wonder what my kids are doing. I wonder if they posted anything. Well, I'll just blink, and suddenly I'm 45 minutes later or an hour later, and I've gotten sucked into some infomercial. I'm like, nothing about this was good. So I go days at a time without any kind of social media. But then, you just can't be up to speed on everything.
Right. Yeah. There's no way. I mean, there's just too much. But so we've had conversations about with the interpersonal neurobiology, which is kind of a new with neuroplasticity, and that's an interest that I've had probably on the education side of things, but don't you share where you are with that and
Oh goodness, the latest adventure of my life.
yeah.
Okay. In a nutshell, 10 years ago, my niece was living with me, living with us, and she was she'd been she would say, I don't remember my 20s.
Wow.
That's what my niece would say.
Wow.
Multiple overdose attempts. And she was just kind of crazy. Anyway, at the time, her behavior was so outlandish, and someone that I just knew peripherally saw her in public. The way she was dressed, the way she was acting, they said, there is a technology coming out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Investigate it and trust the process. And I was just thinking, okay, anything, help. And I met a man that had a license for this technology. And she went through 10 2-hour sessions and was radically changed. And I was so taken with it that it was kind of expensive. I mean, it was $1,800, but I found myself going, who else needs this? Who else needs this?
Wow.
And so I went to the head of the Yellow Ribbon program. It was a school for veterans that were high risk or PTSD or wounded. And I went to a veteran and the head of the program, and said, can I put you through this technology? It really helped my niece. And of course, he looked at me like, do you think I'm crazy? And I said, it's not going to tell you you're crazy, but it will help your brain balance itself in the present moment instead of being traumatized by the past. 10 years ago, I probably put 20 people through the technology. And then the license disappeared in Nashville. And so all that time, this inventor was working on that technology. And this last February, I was in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was seeing a friend of mine. I was playing at the Celebrity Theater that night. And we were driving around, and she said, oh, you've got to look out the other window. The snow on the hills of Scottsdale is amazing. You don't ever see that. And it was like somebody had said, will you pass the salt? I went, I think I'm supposed to make a phone call. And I called the inventor of this technology. I had a years old email. The company had changed names. And I said, I'm just calling to thank you. And do you want to come to my show tonight? And he said, I was hoping you were a bolt out of heaven. Yeah. And that night I had a dream on the tour bus. And it was the craziest thing. And I went back to him and said, I know this technology works. I know it does. And you have lived with your cast of engineers like in a mole run. They've never done any advertising. They've never anything. And I really believed that I was divinely led to this man to use my connections to bring this technology to the world at large.
Wow.
And I mean, every day it's like our dots are connecting. I'm going, I have so little to do with it. But we are seeing, and unlike any other, it's non-invasive, and it allows the brain to heal itself.
Yeah. Isn't that, to me, and my interest in this has come with education and then watching the impact of how technology impacts the children, because we would notice a lot of these things in the classroom before, it would happen, and so I started reading about it, because a lot of times with parents, if they can understand it, like, oh, this device, and everything in moderation is fine. I mean, obviously we're using technology now, everything, but the overuse of it was impacting, and if they can see it that way first, then they're going to be more open to, having a limit to it. Yeah. And I've just been, the more I read about it and the more I watch YouTube on it or learn about it, and people that are in this field, the exciting thing is you're thinking, what God has created, we can just now finally understand the brain and the mind that God has created us to be, and it's just
it's amazing.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah,
and
one thing you said that is really key to this technology, and once again, I just want to stress, it's the only. I don't know of anything else that does this, because everything that has to do with the brain that I have heard of, whether it's magnets or tones or EMDR, everything is taking an exterior, an outside force and trying to impose, hello pup, trying to impose some change in the way the brain
interesting
responds. Everything is an outside force going in. But this technology came about because the inventor was actually attacked by a gang. He was hit in the head with a baseball bat. He was already a scientist, already worked in technology. And in his attempt to find healing for himself, everyone kept saying, "You're fine, you're fine." He said, "I'm not okay, I'm not okay. Nothing helps." And every doctor, everybody, every counselor said, it's all in your head.
Yeah.
And he said, "Yes, it is." And he just said, if the brain is nearly infinite, how can anything be imposed on it and expect a lasting change? What if, like our skin that heals itself, what if a brain, if it could see itself, could balance itself? Because an imbalanced brain is one that reacts from the past.
Right.
Everything is a trigger. And for a brain to actually have the chance to balance itself allows a person to respond in the present moment instead of being triggered from the past. And I mean, there's something deeply spiritual about that.
Yeah,
God
exactly.
said, "I am." I mean, you can't get more present than that.
Right, exactly.
And so whatever is real in this moment, it doesn't mean there's not trauma from the past, but trauma in the past, but trauma from the past should not be the loudest voice today.
Yeah.
And that really is what this technology is doing. And I feel like I stepped into the picture of this research company when they were on the 2-yard line. And I was like, let me get my cheerleader outfit on and my pom-poms. Okay. Because I've had so many contacts with people from all walks of life and my experience in philanthropy, and and you're right, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I'll go, "Can I show you a picture of this person who was in sex trafficking and they did 4 sessions and now they look like this and the furrowed brow is gone. You don't have to buy a pill." It's just like people go, "Can I be a part of that?"
That's amazing.
Anyway.
And it's completely non-invasive.
I've been through the training.
Yeah.
I've worked on veterans, I've worked on teenagers, I've worked on older people, and it's so interesting how we react to patterns in our brain that we're not even aware of.
Yeah, that is just so fascinating.
And you give a chance for those patterns to dissolve or to recede and new patterns be established.
So is there a certain number of treatments, or is it, because usually they're like 21 days, or if someone has, it's just a few sessions and
4
then
days. It takes 4, basically hour and a half to 2 hour session.
you can, and the one of the excitement that I've had are just people that I've talked to that are in counseling or have studied their brain their whole life, and they're just like, this, it's
exciting.
It's coming, and
So some new developments that are exciting. One is, Wake Forest did a study on this 10 years ago. The Nevada State Prison did a study with this technology 11 years ago. The Department of Defense is doing a study right now at Fort Bragg and at Walter Reed with... all based around sleep. But last week, we signed a contract to provide sessions for adolescents because of the high suicide rate.
Oh, wow. Gosh, can you imagine just even if you could just bring that percentage down?
Yeah.
you know. Well, you were saying that the only thing you knew how to do music. It looks like
I've learned
yeah,
one.
whole new.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Well, you know, it's really, as you're talking, you know, I think about, you know, just kind of on the beginnings of this, and I can't help. I don't know why it just came to me. I couldn't help but think about your father and his work in oncology. You know, that you know a lot that he did here in Nashville. You know, with Vanderbilt was, you know, not. I mean, just bringing that forward. I don't know if
Sure,
you can share what he did. I mean, you know, this is going to be life changing for people too. What you're doing is just.
And brain health is just like every other part of, you know, emotional health, physical health. Our health is an ongoing practice. Yeah. And it's so interesting to me, even how scripture plays into this. Like, what is the verse from Philippians? I'm going to get it all kind of patchwork together here, but whatsoever is true, whatsoever is noble, whatsoever is of good repute, you know, think on these things. Yeah. I mean, that is a good brain practice.
Right.
Every time you have a thought, every time you relive an argument, you're deepening a tract in your brain. And, you know, so for instance, we'll do 4 sessions with somebody. And then we'll say, now it's important for you to protect your sleep. Don't drink a Coke at 11 p.m. and get on a screen. Yeah. You know, wind down.
Yes.
Because only you can close your eyes and give yourself a chance to rest.
Right.
And resting is important. And look at the stressors in your life. Because when somebody's coming from a place of balance, they look at things differently. Someone walks in and a marriage is full of trauma. And we do the sessions on the husband and the wife.
Wow.
And what feels different, they might have walked 500 yards away from each other. And choices and who did what, both people are 500 yards away from each other, both of them with broken limbs. And what this feels like is for somebody to try to walk on a broken limb is excruciating.
Yeah.
And these sessions feel like setting the bones and putting on a hard cast that's got a walking sole. Yeah. And you go, you are still 500 yards away from each other, but you are now, you have the ability to walk toward each other.
You're equipped to walk to one another.
You're equipped to walk. Yeah. But so much of life is a choice, you know? I mean, and so, but I have never felt so much hope for all of the, I don't know.
It has to be so fulfilling, you know, because it's, you're helping, there's like a way to help people heal who haven't. Now, has there been anything with this, like with addiction or?
A lot of times, you know, it's really a pre-existing imbalance that makes someone.
Right.
So this morning I was looking at the graphs of a young woman that's battling a lot of depression. She's just like, her family's so worried about her. And it's interesting because when I was looking at kind of your stress sensors, which are your temporals, everything looked fairly balanced until the very lowest frequency. And that was all the way, just hanging way out to the right, low frequencies. And anyway, I just said, can you get a message to this woman's mother and ask if there's anything that happened to her in utero or in the first year of her life? Because how the brain stores information and where the brain stores information. And I got a text with a list that long. It was like, this. And I thought, what if this woman, you know, what if her life is playing out the way it is because in some of her reactivity has to do with something she can't even remember.
Or she had no control over even at the same time.
But her brain remembers it.
Right. So with the technique, and then you talked about are there different things they can do, like, because I would think when we were talking about the writing, what that does is it helps release things.
Right.
But,
so all I do, all any of us that are tech coaches for this Cereset technology is a client comes and sits in the chair, and there's a pattern of where you place the sensors on their head.
Wow.
And we usually do 3 sets of placements, and then start the exercise, and the sensor takes that brain activity and runs it through this proprietary algorithm and then plays back for them a pattern of notes. It's not technically it's not music the brain is making, but it's a reflection of the brain's activity. And the brain, it would be like, the brain has 2 jobs: to keep you alive and to normalize your experience, whatever that is. And so the brain is always on guard. But so that sound that the brain is hearing, it's like, what is that? What is that? And then it doesn't take very long, and the brain realizes that combination of tones is actually a reflection of itself.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And so then it relaxes deeply. And as it relaxes, every brain in its own time starts balancing itself. It's not something we're doing. We're just providing an acoustic mirror.
Right.
So the only way to women, I said, if you had to get dressed for a black tie function in a dark closet, you would go, I know myself. Okay, I know this dress. You'd put it all on. And then if you stepped into the light and looked in the mirror and went, I have 3 chin hairs, a booger in my nose, my hair's a mess, and a run in my stockings, you would go, give me 10 minutes. And it's the same thing. It's like, I can see. And seeing makes you be aware of all the adjustments.
Wow.
And so thank you for letting me talk about
that.
No. 10 years from now, we'll go, remember when we were
talking about that conversation?
I was like, duh.
Well, I know, because for me it's so fascinating, because I'm looking at it with the children, and what I'm reading, they talk about how different parts of your brain, you can begin developing this as they're growing through, the empathy and the resilience and the balance and the insight, all of that is connected to all the virtues, that we try to teach and show the children, that looks like, that sounds like. It's probably years ago. You remember those little cards?
I do remember those cards, yeah.
And that's actually now we're in Singapore.
That's fantastic.
And then like over 500 schools, and then we'll start working with some charter schools in Detroit. We have the images, and so we'll start that in the fall. As I've been working on that for about a year, so I hope
that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
That we can. But that's kind of what you're doing. But before, hopefully, if we can begin to teach people to react, because that's one thing that they really do stress, even just from a human natural level, that you can teach young people empathy, and teach them resilience, and just in the way, and that the brain takes all that in and begins to create those patterns, so at some point along the line, in these situations, these pathways were different, and it's starting to bring healing.
That's good.
Yeah. Wow. So God is good all the time.